Welcome to my Chile road trip series. I'm super excited about this series because A, I had a great time, and B, I feel like I learned a lot on my trip, and I think this information could be helpful if you're considering a Chile road trip. I did spend about a week in Argentina, so technically this is a Chile-Argentina road trip, but because I spent the bulk of my time in Chile, I'm just going to refer to it as the Chile road trip. You can read up about a place all you want, but you never get the true taste of it until you're actually there. I hope this series gives you a better idea of what it's like and shows you that a DIY road trip is very doable. Really, if you love road trips like me, then go ahead and add Chile and Argentina to your list of destinations, because this is a great place for road tripping. We did take taxis in Santiago, but other than that, we had a car the whole time. So I can't offer any advice about the public transportation system, although I had multiple people tell me it's really good there. By the way, I'm going to be going into much more detail about the routes and specific things you need to know in later videos. This video is just a brief overview of the routes I took, the costs, and what I did to prepare for it. Originally, I was planning on doing a solo road trip. The last time I went anywhere besides Europe was 5 years ago when my sister and I did our big Southern Africa road trip. I love Europe, but I was ready for something new, and I've never been to South America before, so I thought, why not? I hopped on Google and looked up the safest countries in South America. Chile was one of the top countries that popped up. Check. My second Google search was, is it easy to drive in Chile? Tons of results came up for doing a Chile road trip. Double check. Chile it was. I decided to split the trip up into 2 legs, part of the time in the south and part of the time in the north. And before I began booking everything, one of my friends asked if she could join me for the first 2 weeks of my trip. I know we travel well together because we've taken international trips before, so obviously I welcome the company. Then, right before I was set to leave, my twin announced she wanted to go with me for the last 2 weeks of my trip. Needless to say, I was thrilled to have travel companions for my whole trip. Now, I'm going to show you a brief overview of my routes, and then I'll give you a general idea of what I packed. I thought my friend would like Patagonia better than the Atacama Desert, so the first part of the trip started in the south. The plan was to spend a couple of days in Santiago exploring, resting after the long flight, and getting adjusted to the time difference. There are different routes we could have taken in Patagonia, so we had to decide exactly where did we want to road trip. One of our friends had done the Carretera Austral route, and I have no clue if I just pronounced that right, which is very popular and looks beautiful, and she highly recommended it. I would certainly like to do that route someday, but we wanted to do something with a different landscape than we've seen before, so we decided to do southern Patagonia. So, from Santiago, we flew to Punta Arenas, picked up a rental car, and that's where the road trip began. Our destinations were Puerto Natales, El Calafate, El Chaltén, back to Puerto Natales, then flying out of Punta Arenas to Santiago. From Santiago, my friend flew home, my sister flew in, and we began our trip to the Atacama. We had considered going way up north, but because of the lodging options and the things to do and see up there, we decided our time was better spent in the Atacama, and we decided to drive from Santiago. Now, spoiler alert, there is a reason why there is almost no information online about doing a road trip there and why every itinerary involves flying up. It's because there's nothing to see. Okay, that's not totally true. We did find things to see and do along the way, which I'll show you if you do decide to do a road trip up there. I'm glad we drove just because I wanted to know what it was like, and it satisfied my curiosity. But if I were to go back again, I would definitely not drive. In fact, our plan was to drive there and back. But right before we headed north, we changed our car drop-off location so that we could fly back down to Santiago instead. Once we started driving up there, we were so glad we did that because doing that drive all the way back would have been hellacious. A lot of the destinations had long driving times from one point to the next with very few options for lodging in between. So picking the right places took some time, especially for me because it was very important I had good Wi-Fi so I could work on the trip. I had read the Wi-Fi in Patagonia was pretty bad, and here's another spoiler alert. Except for one location, I didn't have any issues. In fact, I thought the Wi-Fi was pretty decent everywhere we went. We mostly stuck with Airbnbs, although there were a couple of hotels we booked, and overall we had good lodging on the trip. So, what did I decide to pack? Well, there was a lot of stress around this. I went in mid-October to mid-November, so it was early spring there. Everything we read said the weather can change from sunny one minute to cold, windy rain the next. I was hunting for all of this waterproof clothing, which I'm sorry, but in my opinion is absolutely hideous and not something I would ever wear again. It literally made me feel anger just to have the clothes even touching my body. So after doing tons of research and buying and returning tons of these all-weather outdoorsy pants and jackets, I settled on the fact that I was just going to wear my parachute pants over fleece-lined leggings. And I did get one pair of water-resistant pants that I hate but also secretly do love because they're very comfortable. I'll tell you right now, both my friend and I agreed the best purchase for the trip was fleece-lined leggings. They will be your best friend and you'll never look back, so get at least one pair. I'm mostly telling you about special clothing for Patagonia because there wasn't really anything special we needed for Santiago or the desert. So for Patagonia, obviously a pair of good hiking boots. We both brought trekking poles, which I didn't really need most of the time, but later into the series I will tell you about a hike I'd recommend them for. A couple pairs of fleece-lined leggings, some water-resistant pants to wear over leggings or on their own, a sun hat, a camelback, some lightweight sweaters for layering, a wind puffer lined with fleece. Mine is a cheap one I've owned for years and it worked just fine. A wind/water resistant shell for over that, a beanie or two, a couple pairs of thermals, and I did bring gloves, although I didn't wear them a ton. Layering is key for the hikes because you'll be pulling off and putting on layers constantly. I also brought a thick winter coat that I use just for walking around town and for flying because I always get freezing cold on flights. If you go during this time, it may be different for you, but I think we totally lucked out and had nice sunny days almost the entire time. And I'm really glad I didn't buy or pack any more than what I did because even the stuff I packed, I probably could have eliminated a few things. I guess it's better to be safe than sorry though. As far as cost goes, not including my flight there, for a month of lodging, gas, food, and activities, I spent about $2,500. And that was splitting the cost with someone else the whole time. So if you're traveling solo, it could cost almost twice that much. And obviously, depending on what activities you do, it could cost even more. Speaking of money, I used my credit card about 99% of the time. There were only a few instances where I had to use cash, but for the most part, you should be able to use your credit card for almost everything. So, this was the general overview of the trip to give you an idea of who, what, when, where, and why. Next time, we're going to fly to Santiago and I'll give you my initial impressions of Chile. If you're excited about seeing how the rest of the road trip goes, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And if any of this information was helpful to you, please give this video a thumbs up. See you next time.